Parents made me give my $5,000 inheritance to my sister for her business. Now she's taunting me with launch party photos, so I decided to get revenge. I'm a 17-year-old girl, and a couple of months ago, I was forced to give away the money I had inherited from my grandmother to my older sister. My sister Connie is 6 years older than me, and she's always bullied me for no real reason. Honestly, she does it because she knows she can get away with it. Ever since we were kids, my parents have ignored or downplayed her nasty behavior. They would always tell me not to make a big deal out of it and say I was just being sensitive whenever I complained about Connie. Looking back, it's clear that my parents were basically gaslighting me, making me think her bullying was just normal sibling stuff and that I had no right to be upset. But trust me, Connie was way worse than most older siblings. When we were little, she would constantly put me down with her harsh words. It wasn't just harmless teasing. It was hurtful. My parents would always tell me to shut up but never said anything to her, even though she was the one making me cry. That was bad enough, but at least it was just verbal. One particular incident happened when I was 13 that made me realize she didn't just dislike me. She actually hated me. My family had driven to the beach and Connie brought a couple of her friends. She was 19 then and home from college for the weekend, so she and her friends were spending all their time together. For some reason, her friends seemed to hate me just as much as she did. Maybe they were all dealing with the same kind of mental issues that made them despise people who'd done nothing to them. They constantly put me down, made cutting remarks, and giggled whenever I was around. I got sick of it and decided to take a break, sitting by myself on the pier with my feet dangling over the water. Suddenly, I felt a plastic bag being shoved over my head and someone kicked me into the water. It took me a couple of minutes to figure out what was happening. Then I saw my sister and her friends running away, laughing while I splashed around in the water. Thankfully, I'm a good swimmer, so I managed to get the plastic bag off my head and swim back to shore. It was the most terrifying experience of my life. When I got back to my parents crying and telling them what happened, my sister and her friends tried to brush it off as a harmless prank. But the worst part was my parents actually laughed along with them and told me I was overreacting, like always. My dad even made a joke about how all those swimming lessons had finally paid off. The plastic bag could have suffocated me and I could have drowned. So many things could have gone wrong, but they found it all very funny. That incident made it clear that my parents had a favorite daughter, and it definitely wasn't me. From that point on, I decided I wouldn't treat these people like my family. My only goal was to study hard, get into college, and get away from them. I couldn't trust any of them. Since then, I've kept my distance from Connie, but unfortunately, I'm still stuck living with my parents. I have to act nice with them, which is one reason I ended up giving away the money I inherited 3 months ago, even though I didn't want to. My grandmother, who was my dad's mother, passed away about a year ago, and we finally received the inheritance 3 months ago. She left the house and most of her money to my parents, while Connie and I got $5,000 each. I also received a sapphire ring because I once told her I liked it, and she joked that I could have it when she was gone. It was a lot of money, and I planned to save it for my future. But then my parents told me Connie was starting her own business, and Dee needed all the money she could get. They were already helping her and now expected me to do the same. I didn't think it was fair. Why should I have to help her when she's treated me so cruelly all my life? I refused. But after days of arguing, my dad told me that if I didn't help Connie, he wouldn't pay for my college tuition and wouldn't even let me come back home once I left. I was scared and frustrated, so I ended up agreeing. It probably wasn't the best decision, but I was under a lot of pressure and needed some peace and quiet to focus on my finals. So, to shut my parents up, I agreed to give up my inheritance. At least they let me keep my ring, probably because they didn't know it was a real sapphire. In my grandmother's will, she only mentioned it as the ring with the blue stone, but I knew what she meant. So, I figured it was smart to stay quiet because it was worth a lot, and that turned out to be a good move for me. I ended up giving up the $5,000 my grandma had given me, and that settled the argument. Now, 3 months later, I've gotten into the college I wanted, and I'm starting in a couple of weeks. My parents are sticking to their word and covering all my expenses, including tuition and living costs since I'm going out of state. Turns out giving up that $5,000 wasn't such a bad investment after all, because now I don't have to stress about money while I'm at college. Things have been going pretty well for me, technically still are, but I feel super guilty about something I did recently. A couple of days ago, my sister threw a launch party for her new store. She's finally managed to open it with her college friends, the same girls who thought it was hilarious to shove me into the sea with a plastic bag over my head. The three of them now have this big store selling shoes and accessories. It's basic stuff, but they think it's revolutionary because they believe their designs are super cute. A lot of guys seem to agree with them, so their friends and followers are definitely going to be shopping there. Anyway, my sister, let's call her Connie, could have had a successful career ahead of her, but she sent me a bunch of photos from the party to rub it in my face. I wasn't invited, supposedly because it was an adults-only event and I'm 17. Total BS, but I didn't want to go anyway. After the party, Connie sent me the photos and a text saying I should live vicariously through them since I missed her fabulous party. She even threw in a cocky comment about how she couldn't have done it without my help, referring to the $5,000 I gave up. That really got on my nerves. Then I noticed a guy in the photos. I checked my gallery to confirm my suspicion. From the photos, it wasn't clear if they were dating or not since he was just in the background. But even with some stubble and extra weight, I recognized him as her high school ex-boyfriend, let's call him Simon. He started dating her as soon as she turned 18, even though he was 25 at the time. They met online when she was 16, and he asked her out right on her 18th birthday, which I found pretty creepy. But Connie thought it was romantic. For once, my parents acted like normal humans and told her they didn't like her dating someone who had been waiting for her to turn 18. Of course, she didn't listen and secretly dated him. He was working at his dad's company, but they broke up after 8 months because he got caught stealing and had to move to Wyoming to work on his uncle's farm. Connie was devastated and begged Dad to get Simon a job here so he wouldn't have to leave, but Dad refused and made her block him everywhere. The house was chaos that day. Connie begging, Dad yelling, Mom crying, and I was told to stay in my room. But I heard Simon's name a lot. I stalked him on social media afterward, and you don't forget a face like that. Seeing him in the background of her photos, I decided to get back at Connie since and our parents never really included me in the family discussions. They were pretty open about the business stuff around me, so I knew her friends' parents were skeptical about investing in a store focused only on shoes and accessories. One of her friends' moms, a single parent, was especially hesitant and wanted her daughter to work and gain experience before investing. Connie had been complaining about this woman a lot. Eventually, they decided to go ahead with the money they had. So, for now, they had enough to get by. But if their business started booming later on, their third friend's mom would invest too. That was the plan they came up with. But to make that happen, the first few months had to be a huge hit. They had just enough capital to last a couple of months, and after that, they'd need more investment. Unless, by some miracle, they made enough profits to keep going on their own, which was pretty unlikely, especially since it's super hard to break even so early with a small business in the tough fashion market. I knew that their last potential investor, the mom who was still unsure, needed just one reason to back out, and I had the secret that could make it happen. So, I reached out to her through a fake account and asked her to call me because I had some important info about her daughter's business. I made sure she called me via Facebook and didn't give her my number because I wanted to stay anonymous. I had to wait a couple of hours, probably because she was unsure if this was legit. But curiosity got the better of her, and she eventually called. I spilled the beans about what I had seen and who the shady guy in the background of all the photos was. She didn't believe me at first, but I convinced her my job was just to warn her. Whether she still wanted to invest or not was up to her. Then I hung up, sent her a couple of old photos of Connie and Simon, and left it up to her. Looks like she decided to back out and even told her daughter to do the same because from the day after that call, things got crazy. No one has any clue in behind this, but Connie's been calling our parents to try and get them to convince the investor mom to come back. Her friends are also super pissed at her because she didn't share this stuff with them. Apparently she's back with Simon but lied about who he was so no one would recognize him. Even our parents are mad at her for this. To sum it up, Connie's in deep trouble. Everyone's mad at her, and while I thought I'd enjoy this, I just can't. This business meant a lot to her, and now I'm wondering if I was too petty, and maybe what I did was wrong. I overheard our parents talking, and even they're pissed at her, considering pulling out as investors because she broke their trust. They never get this upset with her, so this is a big deal. Honestly, this doesn't feel as good as I thought it would. So, am I the asshole for screwing over my sister by getting a potential investor to back out because she bullied me as a kid? Update 1. Hey, thanks to everyone who responded with advice. You guys are right. I might have too much of a conscience to enjoy this. I'm keeping my mouth shut because if my parents found out I was behind this, they'd kick me out. I'm turning 18 soon, and there would be nothing stopping them. Plus, I'm relying on them to pay for my college, so I can't afford to mess this up. It's been a week since my post, and things have gotten worse for Connie. The investor mom convinced her daughter to back out too, leaving just Connie and her other friend. This friend is now demanding they split the business shares 60-40 because she no longer trusts Connie after finding out about Simon. Connie had introduced him as a guy she met on a dating app a few months back, but after the truth came out, no one believes her. She even tried to claim the photos were photoshopped. Now, Connie visits our parents almost every day, and they're scolding her but still trying to help. Every evening, they meet with their lawyer to figure out a way to save her shares. There's a real chance the business might shut down if they don't resolve this quick. I don't know how I feel about that, but I'm avoiding thinking about it. The only good thing is that with Connie in trouble, no one pays attention to me. I can come and go as I please, and it's nice. It's taken the spotlight off me, and even when Connie is around, she ignores me because she's too wrapped up in her mess. My parents don't say anything to me either, so I'm just enjoying my last weeks at home before college. It's been great. I don't have to answer to anyone, and I feel like I could stay at a friend's place for days, and no one would even notice. So yeah, this is the one good thing that's come out of all this. Oh man, things have really gone downhill fast. So I was trying to stay out of all the drama and just hoping everyone would leave me alone until college started, right? Plus, I was crossing my fingers that all this craziness wouldn't mess up my parents' decision to pay for my college tuition. It didn't even occur to me until I was writing my first post that this could be a problem. If they decide not to pay, I'm totally screwed. But at least if that happens, I'll have the small satisfaction of knowing Connie's got it worse than me. So here's the latest. It's been almost 2 weeks since I first posted, and up until last week, nothing had really involved me. So I thought things were cooling off. But nope, not the case anymore. A few days ago, the woman I called finally caved under the pressure and spilled the beans to Connie about how she found out about this whole past connection thing. She didn't tell Connie the whole story, just mentioned she got an anonymous call and some photos from someone. Connie's not even pretending anymore. Everyone kind of figured out she never actually met this guy on a dating app, and that the pictures were real. Anyway, Connie obviously thought of me first when she heard about the anonymous call. So yesterday, she shows up at our place while I'm downstairs, about to head out to meet a friend. She comes storming in, sees me, and shoves me as hard as she can. I lost my balance and my temper and shoved her right back. Then she grabs me by the hair, screaming in my face that she knew it was me who made that call and that she was going to make me pay for it. I was freaking out inside, but tried to stay calm so she wouldn't guess it was actually me. I yelled right back at her, denying everything, saying I wouldn't even know who to talk to because I only met her friend's parents once when they came over for lunch a couple of weeks before they opened the store. Total lie, of course, but I tried to make it sound convincing. Our parents finally broke us apart after a few seconds of yelling. Connie was still insistent that it was me and demanded to go through my phone and laptop. I knew this was coming, so I threw a fit to avoid looking suspicious, but I had already wiped everything clean. She thought I made the call from my phone, not realizing I had created a fake Facebook account specifically for contacting her friend's mom. Even when she and my parents checked all my social media accounts, they found nothing. When she couldn't find proof, Connie freaked out, accusing me of wiping my devices on purpose. I argued back, saying she was losing her mind over her failed business, but she had no right to take it out on me. Things eventually calmed down, and she started crying. I thought I was in the clear, but then my parents sided with Connie. They couldn't find proof, but they believed her because there was no one else who could have known about this. They decided to cancel their plans to pay for my college. I lost it, screaming and crying, but it didn't matter. Key a difference. They didn't care since I wasn't Connie. After about half an hour of begging and tears, I finally gave up and locked myself in my room, writing this update to distract myself. I still have the sapphire ring my grandma left me, but I don't think selling it will cover all 3 years of college. So I'm considering a student loan and asking a family member to co-sign because the payment deadline is fast approaching and I can't risk missing it. Moving on, it's been about a month since my last update and things have changed a lot. A couple of days after my last post, I left my parents' place since they weren't going to pay for my college. I talked it over with a friend and packed my bags to live with her. She told me I'd be welcome to come and live with her and her family since she was taking a gap year. After crashing at their place for a couple of days, her and her parents sat me down and explained that she wanted to start working at her dad's business instead of going to college. It turns out she never really had any interest in college to begin with, but her parents had a college fund set aside for her. They offered it to me to use for now. At first, I tried to politely decline, but they were super convincing. Given that her parents have known me pretty much forever and said it was like sending their own daughter to college, I really couldn't say no to such a generous offer. So, I accepted it. Now, I'm really thankful because I'm currently on campus and I didn't even have to sell my grandmother's ring to make it happen. As for Connie, things didn't end too well on her side. She ended up selling all her shares in the business, and now her friends own the store completely. She basically had to cut her losses and leave because it became clear that nobody could trust her anymore. Sadly, my parents couldn't do much about it since it was out of their hands. Connie is probably pretty bummed because it was her idea from the start, but she might find some relief in knowing that the store doesn't seem to have a bright future ahead. Anyway, that's not my problem since I'm not in touch with her anymore. Right now, I'm just focusing on my future and moving forward.